The ground beneath our feet holds secrets that make our greatest mysteries look simple. Beneath layers of earth and time lie artifacts so impossible, so perfectly crafted, that they seem to mock everything we thought we knew about our ancestors. Objects that shouldn't exist. Technologies that predate their supposed invention by thousands of years. And civilizations that vanish so completely they left behind only whispers carved in stone. Tonight, we're descending into the depths of history's most baffling enigmas. The kind that make archaeologists lose sleep and force scientists to question the very foundations of human development. These aren't ghost stories or folklore passed down through generations. These are physical, tangible mysteries that you can touch, measure, and study. And yet, after decades of research, they remain as inexplicable as the day they were discovered. So settle in, because what you're about to hear will challenge everything you think you know about our past. And by the end of this journey, you might find yourself wondering if the story of human civilization is far stranger and far older than we've ever dared to imagine. Deep in the archives of the Smithsonian Institution, tucked away in climate-controlled vaults where only a select few researchers are permitted to venture, sits an object that has puzzled scientists for nearly a century. It's not much to look at, really. A simple metallic sphere, no larger than a baseball, with a smooth, almost mirror-like surface that seems to absorb light rather than reflect it. But this unassuming artifact has become one of archaeology's most confounding riddles. The sphere was discovered in 1938 by a mining crew working deep beneath the mountains of South Africa. They found it embedded in solid rock, surrounded by mineral deposits that geological dating placed at nearly 3 billion years old. 3 billion years. To put that in perspective, that's roughly the time when the Earth's atmosphere first began to contain oxygen. Complex life forms were still over 2 billion years away from evolving. And yet, here was this perfectly crafted metallic object, sitting in stone, that formed when our planet was still a hostile, alien world. When scientists first examined the sphere, they assumed it had to be a natural formation, perhaps some rare type of mineral concretion or an unusual crystal formation. But as they studied it more closely, the evidence began to paint a different picture. The object was made of an alloy that doesn't occur naturally on Earth. Its surface bore microscopic grooves that formed intricate geometric patterns, too precise and purposeful to be the work of geological processes. And most unsettling of all, when they subjected it to various forms of analysis, it seemed to generate its own weak electromagnetic field. Dr. Elizabeth Crawford, the geologist who first catalogued the sphere, wrote in her private notes that the object defies every principle of geological formation we understand. She went on to describe how the sphere seemed to be composed of materials that wouldn't be discovered by human science for another several decades. Elements that required sophisticated metallurgy to combine. Techniques that our ancestors supposedly didn't possess until the industrial age. But the South African sphere wasn't alone. Over the following decades, similar objects began surfacing at archaeological sites around the world. In Romania, construction workers uncovered a series of metallic discs buried beneath layers of sediment that dated back over 100,000 years. In Chile, miners found crystalline formations that contained what appeared to be manufactured components, perfectly symmetrical, and showing clear signs of intelligent design. And in remote regions of Russia, explorers discovered metallic objects embedded in ice cores that were older than human civilization itself. Each discovery raised the same impossible questions. How could such sophisticated artifacts exist in geological layers that predate human technology by millions of years? Who or what created them? And perhaps most troubling of all, why do they all seem to share certain characteristics, certain design elements that suggest they might be part of some larger, coordinated system? The scientific community's response to these discoveries has been, to put it mildly, uncomfortable. Mainstream archaeology has largely chosen to ignore them, dismissing them as misidentified natural formations or contamination from more recent periods. But the evidence continues to mount, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to explain away. Consider the Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece in 1901. For decades, this corroded bronze device sat in museums, labelled simply as an ancient astrolabe. But when modern technology finally allowed researchers to peer inside its complex inner workings, they found something that shouldn't have existed for another 1,000 years. The mechanism was a sophisticated analog computer capable of predicting the positions of celestial bodies with remarkable accuracy. Its gear system was so advanced that similar technology wasn't developed again until the Renaissance. The implications are staggering. This device was created around the 1st century BCE, during a time when most of history tells us that humans were still using primitive tools and had only the most basic understanding of astronomy. Yet here was evidence of mechanical engineering that rivals modern clockwork, mathematical knowledge that wouldn't be rediscovered until the age of Copernicus, and manufacturing precision that required tools we're told didn't exist. But even the Antikythera mechanism pales in comparison to some of the other artifacts that have emerged from the archaeological record. In the mountains of Peru, researchers have uncovered stone blocks that fit together with such precision that you cannot slide a knife blade between them. These blocks, some weighing over 100 tons, were cut and shaped with an accuracy that modern construction equipment struggles to match. The angles are perfect to within fractions of a degree, the surfaces smooth to within microscopic tolerances. The traditional explanation is that ancient Peruvian civilizations accomplished this feat using copper tools, wooden rollers, and extraordinary patience. But engineers who have attempted to replicate these techniques using period-appropriate tools have found it virtually impossible. Copper chisels become dull after only minutes of work on such hard stone. Even with modern diamond-tipped tools, achieving this level of precision is extremely challenging. Yet somehow, people working with supposedly primitive technology managed to create monuments that have stood for thousands of years, surviving earthquakes that have toppled modern buildings. And the precision isn't limited to large-scale construction. In Egypt, archaeologists have found granite boxes cut with tolerances that would be difficult to achieve even with today's computer-controlled machinery. The corners are perfect right angles, the surfaces polished to a mirror finish, and the internal dimensions are uniform to within thousandths of an inch. These boxes were supposedly created using simple hand tools, yet they display a level of craftsmanship that suggests the use of advanced technology. Dr. Christopher Dunn, an engineer who has spent decades studying these artifacts, has pointed out that the drill marks visible on some of these granite pieces suggest the use of power tools operating at very high speeds. The spiral grooves left behind by these ancient drilling operations match patterns that are typically produced by modern diamond core drills, rotating at thousands of revolutions per minute. But according to conventional archaeology, such tools wouldn't be invented for several more millennia. Perhaps even more puzzling are the artifacts that seem to demonstrate knowledge of scientific principles that weren't supposed to be discovered until the modern era. In Iraq, archaeologists have uncovered what appears to be an ancient battery, complete with copper and iron electrodes and an electrolyte solution. When reconstructed, this device is capable of generating a small electrical current, yet it predates the discovery of electricity by nearly 2,000 years. Similar technological anomalies have been found across the globe. In Central America, researchers have discovered crystal skulls carved with such precision that they seem to defy the laws of optics. When light is shone through them, they produce internal illumination effects that require an understanding of light refraction that wasn't developed until the 19th century. The crystal itself shows no tool marks, no evidence of how it was shaped, as if it were formed rather than carved. These discoveries force us to confront an uncomfortable possibility. Perhaps our understanding of human technological development isn't as complete as we'd like to believe. Perhaps there were civilizations in our past that achieved levels of sophistication that we've only recently begun to match. Or perhaps, as some researchers have begun to suggest, there were influences at work in our ancient past that we haven't accounted for in our historical models. The pattern is consistent across cultures and continents. Ancient texts from around the world speak of advanced beings who came from the sky, who possessed knowledge of the stars and the ability to work with materials and forces that seemed magical to the people of the time. The Sumerian tablets describe the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens and taught humanity the arts of civilization. Hindu texts speak of vimanas, flying vehicles capable of traveling vast distances through the air and even to other worlds. The Bible contains detailed descriptions of Ezekiel's wheel, a technological marvel that sounds remarkably similar to modern descriptions of advanced aircraft. For too long, these accounts have been dismissed as mythology, as primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena or to glorify earthly rulers. But what if they weren't metaphorical at all? What if these ancient texts were actually historical records, accurate accounts of events that really occurred, but which don't fit into our current understanding of human development? The evidence is mounting that our ancestors may have had access to technologies and knowledge that we're only now beginning to rediscover. And if that's the case, then we need to seriously reconsider not just what we know about the past, but what it means for our understanding of human potential and our place in the cosmos. As we delve deeper into these mysteries, we'll explore artifacts that challenge our most basic assumptions about history, technology, and the development of human civilization. We'll examine evidence that suggests our ancestors may have achieved things that modern science still struggles to explain. And we'll confront the possibility that the story of humanity is far more complex, far more mysterious, and far more extraordinary than we've ever imagined. But these technological anomalies are just the beginning. Because scattered across our planet are structures so massive, so precisely engineered, that they seem to mock our understanding of ancient capabilities. And the deeper we dig, the more we realize that someone, or something, was moving stones that weigh more than modern cranes can lift. In the remote highlands of Bolivia, at an altitude where the air is so thin that most people struggle to breathe, stands a monument that should not exist. Pumapunku, part of the larger Tiwanaku complex, contains stone blocks that were cut with such mathematical precision that they interlock like a three-dimensional puzzle. But these aren't small stones. Some of these megalithic blocks weigh over 400 tons. To put that in perspective, that's heavier than a fully loaded Boeing 747. The precision of the cuts is what truly defies explanation. These massive stones were shaped to tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters. The angles are so exact that when you place two blocks together, the joint is invisible. No mortar was used, yet the fit is so perfect that these structures have survived earthquakes and thousands of years of weathering. Modern architects struggle to achieve this level of precision with computer-controlled machinery and laser-guided tools. Yet somehow, people working at 14,000 feet above sea level, in an environment where every breath is a struggle, manage to create monuments that showcase engineering capabilities we're only now beginning to appreciate. But perhaps what's most unsettling about Pumapunku is what we don't find there. There are no tool marks on the stones, no evidence of chisels or hammers or any conventional cutting implements. The surfaces are polished smooth, as if they were formed rather than carved, and the complex interlocking joints suggest a level of three-dimensional visualization and planning that would challenge even today's engineers. Dr. Arthur Posnansky, the archaeologist who first studied the site extensively, noted that the precision of the stonework was so advanced that it appeared to be the product of a technology beyond anything we know from the ancient world. His measurements revealed that the builders had achieved tolerances that would be considered impressive even by modern manufacturing standards. Yet according to conventional chronology, this work was completed over 1,000 years before Europeans developed the wheel for transportation. The mystery deepens when you consider the logistics. The closest quarry that could have provided stones of this quality is over 10 miles away, across terrain that would challenge modern heavy lifting equipment. How did ancient peoples transport blocks weighing hundreds of tons across such distances? And once they arrived at the construction site, how were they lifted and positioned with such incredible accuracy? Some researchers have suggested that the builders might have possessed knowledge of acoustic levitation, using sound waves to manipulate heavy objects. Others have proposed that they understood principles of anti-gravity that we're only now beginning to explore in theoretical physics. These might sound like science fiction, but when faced with the physical evidence at sites like Pumapunku, conventional explanations simply fall apart. The pattern repeats across the globe. At Baalbek in Lebanon, 3 massive stone blocks known as the Trilithon form part of the foundation of an ancient temple complex. Each of these blocks weighs approximately 800 tons. That's more than twice the weight of the largest stones at Pumapunku, and significantly heavier than anything our modern construction equipment can safely lift. Yet they were somehow quarried, transported, and placed with such precision that they've remained stable for over 2,000 years. The quarry where these stones originated is located about half a mile from the construction site, but the route between the quarry and the temple involves crossing uneven terrain and navigating several elevation changes. Modern engineers have calculated that moving stones of this size would require a coordinated effort involving thousands of workers and machinery that didn't exist until the 20th century. Yet somehow it was accomplished with technology that we're told was primitive by comparison. Even more puzzling is the unfinished megalith that remains in the Baalbek quarry. Known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, this partially carved block would have weighed over 1,000 tons when completed. It's still attached to the bedrock, as if the ancient builders simply stopped working on it and walked away. But why abandon such a massive undertaking? And what were they planning to do with a stone that would dwarf even the colossal blocks they had already successfully moved? These questions become even more perplexing when we examine the precision of the work. The surfaces of the Baalbek stones are cut so smoothly that they appear to have been machined. The joints between blocks are so tight that you cannot insert a piece of paper between them. This level of accuracy requires not just advanced tools, but sophisticated measurement techniques and quality control that we associate with modern manufacturing processes. Similar megalithic mysteries exist on Easter Island, where nearly 900 massive stone statues called moai dot the landscape. These monuments, some standing over 30 feet tall and weighing as much as 80 tons, were carved from volcanic rock using what we're told were simple stone tools. But recent analysis has revealed details that challenge this explanation. The moai aren't just heads, as many people believe. Full-body excavations have shown that many of these statues extend deep underground, with some having bodies that are proportionally as large as their famous heads. The precision of the carving is extraordinary, with fine details preserved in the hard volcanic stone. The symmetry is so exact that it suggests the use of standardized templates or measuring devices that shouldn't have existed on this remote island. But perhaps most mysteriously, all of the moai face inland, toward the center of the island, except for 7 statues that face the ocean. These 7 are different from all the others, not just in their orientation but in their construction and styling. They appear to be much older, made from different types of stone, and carved with techniques that don't match the other statues. It's as if Easter Island had 2 distinct periods of monument building, separated by centuries or perhaps millennia. The logistics of creating and positioning these massive statues on such a remote island add another layer to the mystery. Easter Island is one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth, located over 2,000 miles from the nearest populated land. The island's resources are limited. Its population was never very large, and yet somehow the inhabitants managed to quarry, carve, and transport hundreds of multi-ton sculptures across difficult terrain. Local legends speak of the statues walking to their positions, guided by spiritual power. For years, archaeologists dismissed these stories as folklore, but recent experiments have shown that with the right technique, the moai can indeed be walked upright, using a coordinated rocking motion. This discovery suggests that the ancient islanders possessed sophisticated knowledge of physics and engineering that allowed them to move these massive objects efficiently with relatively small teams. Yet even this explanation doesn't fully account for the precision of the work or the apparent standardization of the construction techniques. The moai show evidence of mass production methods that we typically associate with industrial processes. The quarry at Rano Raraku appears to have been organized like a modern factory, with different areas dedicated to specific stages of production. This level of organization and planning suggests a society with advanced administrative capabilities and technical knowledge. As we examine these megalithic sites around the world, certain patterns emerge that challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities. The precision of the stonework consistently exceeds what should have been possible with the tools we believe were available. The logistics of construction require organizational skills and technical knowledge that don't fit with our models of ancient societies. And perhaps most intriguingly, many of these sites show evidence of multiple construction phases, as if they were built, abandoned, and then rebuilt by entirely different civilizations. This raises profound questions about the continuity of human civilization. Were there advanced societies in our past that rose and fell, leaving behind only these massive monuments as evidence of their existence? Did they possess technologies that were subsequently lost, only to be rediscovered much later in human history? Or were they influenced by knowledge and capabilities that came from outside our normal understanding of human development? The evidence suggests that our ancestors were capable of achievements that modern science still struggles to explain. And as we continue to uncover more of these ancient mysteries, we're forced to confront the possibility that the story of human civilization is far more complex and far more extraordinary than we've ever imagined. The deeper we venture into these ancient enigmas, the more we realize that some mysteries refuse to yield their secrets, no matter how advanced our technology becomes. Hidden beneath layers of earth and time are discoveries so profound, so impossible, that they force us to question everything we thought we knew about our planet's history. But before we continue this journey into the impossible, let me share something that will fundamentally change how you see the world around you. What I'm about to reveal has been quietly discussed in archaeological circles for decades, yet it's been deliberately kept from mainstream attention. Because if this information became widely known, it would force us to rewrite not just history books, but our entire understanding of human civilization itself. Are you ready for that kind of revelation? Because once you hear what comes next, you can never unknow it. And I promise you, by the end of this video, you'll understand why certain discoveries have been locked away in private collections and classified archives, hidden from public view, for reasons that go far beyond academic caution. In the summer of 1991, 2 German tourists hiking through the Ötztal Alps made a discovery that would shake the foundations of archaeology. What they initially thought was the body of a modern hiker turned out to be something far more extraordinary. The naturally mummified remains of a man who had died over 5,000 years ago, perfectly preserved in glacial ice. But it wasn't just the age of the body that stunned researchers. It was what he was carrying. The man, now known as Otzi, the Iceman, possessed tools and equipment that shouldn't have existed in the Copper Age. His copper axe was forged with a level of metallurgical sophistication that predated known copper working techniques by centuries. The blade was attached to the handle using methods that wouldn't be rediscovered until the Bronze Age. His clothing was made from materials and using techniques that demonstrated an understanding of textile production that was supposedly centuries ahead of its time. But perhaps most puzzling was the tattoos covering his body. These weren't decorative markings, but precise symbols placed at specific anatomical locations that correspond exactly to acupuncture points used in traditional Chinese medicine. This suggests that people living in the European Alps over 5 millennia ago possessed detailed knowledge of human anatomy and healing practices that we associate with entirely different civilizations on the other side of the world. Dr. Albert Zink, who led the research team studying Otzi, noted that the sophistication of the preservation techniques and the advanced nature of his equipment suggested a level of civilization that doesn't match our understanding of Copper Age societies. The implications were staggering. Here was physical evidence that ancient peoples possessed knowledge and capabilities that had been completely erased from the historical record. But Otzi was just the beginning. Across the globe, archaeologists have been uncovering evidence of ancient knowledge that seems to transcend the boundaries of what should have been possible. In the deserts of Peru, researchers have discovered a vast network of underground tunnels that extend for miles beneath the earth. These aren't crude caves or natural formations, but precisely engineered passages with smooth walls and perfect ventilation systems that keep the air fresh even at great depths. The tunnels connect various ancient sites across hundreds of miles, creating a subterranean highway system that would be impressive even by modern standards. The engineering required to construct such a network would have demanded advanced surveying techniques, sophisticated tools, and organizational capabilities that challenge our assumptions about pre-Columbian civilizations. Yet carbon dating places their construction thousands of years before the Inca Empire reached its peak. Local legends speak of these tunnels as pathways used by the gods, secret routes that connected sacred sites across the continent. But recent explorations have revealed chambers filled with artifacts that don't match any known cultural traditions. Stone tablets covered in symbols that don't correspond to any recognized writing system. Metallic objects that show signs of advanced manufacturing techniques. And most mysteriously, crystalline formations that appear to be artificially created and arranged in geometric patterns that suggest some kind of technological purpose. The Peruvian government has restricted access to these tunnels, citing safety concerns and the need to preserve archaeological integrity. But researchers who have been granted limited access describe discoveries that fundamentally challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities. Dr. Maria Santos, an archaeologist who spent months cataloguing artifacts from the tunnel system, wrote in her private notes that we are dealing with evidence of a technological civilization that existed thousands of years before such technology should have been possible. Similar underground networks have been discovered across the globe. In Turkey, the ancient city of Derinkuyu reveals a massive subterranean complex that once housed over 20,000 people. This wasn't simply a hiding place or storage facility, but a sophisticated underground city with multiple levels, ventilation systems, water supplies, and even livestock areas. The precision of the construction and the advanced engineering solutions employed suggest knowledge of architecture and urban planning that rivals modern capabilities. But what makes Derinkuyu truly mysterious is its age and purpose. While conventional archaeology dates its construction to around the 8th century BCE, some researchers believe it may be far older. The deepest levels show signs of construction techniques that don't match later periods, and the overall design suggests it was built to house a population for extended periods, as if the builders were preparing for some kind of long-term catastrophe. In China, similar underground complexes have been discovered that predate known Chinese civilizations by thousands of years. These sites contain chambers filled with artifacts that don't match any known cultural traditions. Jade objects carved with mathematical precision that requires modern tools to replicate. Bronze implements that show evidence of alloy compositions not developed until the industrial age. And stone sculptures that demonstrate an understanding of human anatomy so detailed that they rival Renaissance masterpieces. Perhaps most intriguingly, These underground sites often contain chambers that appear to have been designed for specific acoustic properties. When you speak or make sounds in certain locations, the architecture amplifies and focuses the sound in ways that suggest sophisticated knowledge of acoustics and resonance. Some researchers have theorized that these chambers were designed for ceremonial or technological purposes that we don't fully understand. The acoustic properties aren't limited to underground sites. Ancient amphitheaters and temples around the world demonstrate engineering principles that modern architects are only beginning to appreciate. The ancient Greek theatre at Epidaurus can carry a whispered word from the stage to the highest seats, with perfect clarity, using acoustic principles that weren't formally understood until the development of modern physics. Similar acoustic marvels exist in Mayan temples, Egyptian pyramids, and stone circles across Europe. These discoveries suggest that ancient peoples possessed detailed knowledge of physics, mathematics, and engineering that has been systematically underestimated by mainstream archaeology. But the evidence goes beyond impressive construction techniques. Recent analysis of ancient texts and artifacts has revealed knowledge of astronomical phenomena that shouldn't have been observable without modern telescopes. The Dogon people of Mali have traditional beliefs that include detailed knowledge of the Sirius star system, including the existence of a companion star called Sirius B that wasn't discovered by Western astronomy until 1862. Their oral traditions describe this star's orbital period, its density, and other characteristics with remarkable accuracy. They also speak of a third star in the system, Sirius C, which modern astronomy has only recently begun to detect. Similar astronomical knowledge appears in ancient cultures around the world. Mayan calendars demonstrate understanding of planetary cycles and celestial mechanics that required centuries of precise observation and mathematical calculation. The builders of Stonehenge incorporated astronomical alignments that track not just the obvious solar and lunar cycles, but subtle celestial events that occur over periods of thousands of years. The Antikythera mechanism, that bronze computer we discussed earlier, contains gear ratios that precisely model the orbital periods of known planets, but also includes calculations for celestial bodies that weren't officially discovered until the space age. This suggests that ancient astronomers possessed observational capabilities and theoretical knowledge that we're only now beginning to match. But perhaps the most disturbing discoveries are those that suggest ancient peoples had knowledge of catastrophic events that haven't occurred in recorded history. Flood myths exist in virtually every ancient culture, describing global catastrophes that wiped out previous civilizations. These aren't vague legends, but detailed accounts that include specific geographical references and consistent timelines that suggest they may be describing actual historical events. Geological evidence supports the possibility that our planet has experienced catastrophic changes within human history. Ice core samples show evidence of rapid climate changes that occurred much more recently than previously thought. Sediment layers reveal signs of massive flooding events that would have reshaped entire continents. And astronomical data suggests that our solar system has encountered cosmic events that could have had devastating effects on Earth's environment. Ancient texts from around the world describe technologies and capabilities that sound remarkably similar to modern scientific concepts. Sanskrit texts speak of vimanas, flying vehicles that could travel vast distances and even journey to other worlds. The descriptions include technical details about propulsion systems, navigation methods, and construction materials that bear striking resemblances to modern aerospace technology. The Mahabharata contains passages describing weapons that create explosions comparable to nuclear detonations, complete with descriptions of radiation sickness and environmental contamination. The level of detail in these accounts suggests first-hand knowledge of such phenomena, yet they were written thousands of years before nuclear physics was developed. Similar accounts exist in other ancient traditions. The Bible contains Ezekiel's vision of wheels within wheels, describing what sounds remarkably like advanced aircraft with sophisticated guidance systems. Celtic legends speak of the Tuatha De Danann, beings who possessed magical technologies that allowed them to control weather. communicate across vast distances, and travel instantly between locations. These accounts have traditionally been dismissed as mythology or primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena. But when examined alongside the physical evidence of advanced ancient technologies, they begin to paint a picture of a past that was far more sophisticated than we've been taught to believe. The pattern that emerges from these discoveries is both fascinating and disturbing. It suggests that human civilization may have achieved high levels of technological and scientific advancement multiple times throughout history, only to lose that knowledge through catastrophic events or societal collapse. Each time, survivors would have been forced to rebuild from the ruins, carrying only fragmentary memories of their former capabilities. This cyclical view of human development challenges the linear progression model that dominates our understanding of history. Instead of a steady climb from primitive beginnings to modern sophistication, the evidence suggests a pattern of rise and fall, advancement and regression, with each cycle potentially reaching different peaks of achievement before declining again. If this model is correct, then we may not be the first technological civilization to emerge on this planet. We may be the latest in a series of advanced societies that have risen, flourished, and ultimately fallen, leaving behind only scattered artifacts and fragmented memories preserved in myths and legends. The implications of this possibility are profound. It means that our current level of technological development may not represent the pinnacle of human achievement, but rather one point on a much longer timeline of advancement and regression. It suggests that knowledge and capabilities we consider cutting edge may actually be rediscoveries of principles that were understood and applied by our ancestors thousands of years ago. As we continue to uncover more evidence of ancient sophistication, we're forced to confront uncomfortable questions about our assumptions regarding human development and the nature of progress itself. The mysteries we've explored tonight represent just a fraction of the anomalous discoveries that challenge conventional archaeological models. And yet, what we've uncovered so far barely scratches the surface of a mystery so vast, so systematically hidden, that it threatens to unravel everything we think we know about human origins. Because buried in the restricted archives of major universities, locked away in private collections that the public will never see, lies evidence of something that existed long before modern humans supposedly developed civilization. Evidence that suggests we weren't the first intelligent species to call this planet home. The discovery happened purely by accident. In 1977, a routine mining operation in Romania was digging through layers of sediment when their equipment struck something metallic. What they pulled from the earth that day was an aluminum wedge, precisely machined and showing clear signs of intelligent manufacture. The problem? It was buried in rock layers that geological dating placed at over 200,000 years old. Aluminum, in its pure form, doesn't occur naturally on Earth. It requires sophisticated industrial processes to extract from ore, processes that weren't developed until the 19th century. The Romanian wedge should have been impossible, yet there it was, physical proof that someone or something had been working with advanced metallurgy at a time when modern humans were supposedly still learning to make fire. The artifact was immediately classified and disappeared into private collections. Official reports dismissed it as modern contamination, despite multiple independent analyses confirming both its age and its impossible composition. But Romania wasn't an isolated incident. Similar artifacts began surfacing at sites across the globe, each one more impossible than the last. In Russia, miners uncovered metallic springs and mechanical components embedded in coal deposits that were millions of years old. In the United States, a nail was discovered embedded in a block of sandstone from the Mesozoic era, over 60 million years before humans supposedly existed. And in France, construction workers found a metallic tube buried in chalk deposits that predated human civilization by 25 million years. Each discovery followed the same pattern. Initial excitement, followed by rigorous testing that confirmed the artifact's impossible age, followed by official dismissal and the mysterious disappearance of the evidence into private hands. It was as if someone was systematically suppressing any proof that advanced beings had existed on Earth long before recorded history. Dr. Johannes Viehbag, a German researcher who spent decades investigating these anomalous artifacts, noted that they shared certain characteristics that suggested a common origin. The metallurgy was consistent across discoveries, using alloy compositions that wouldn't be developed by human science for centuries. The manufacturing techniques showed evidence of precision machinery and quality control processes that implied industrial-level production capabilities. And perhaps most tellingly, many of the artifacts appeared to be components of larger devices, as if they were pieces of technologies that we've never fully understood. The implications are staggering. If these artifacts are genuine, and the evidence strongly suggests they are, then Earth has hosted technologically advanced civilizations for far longer than we've ever imagined. But who were they? Where did they come from? And what happened to them? Some researchers have proposed that these artifacts represent evidence of previous human civilizations that achieved high levels of technological development before being wiped out by natural catastrophes. The geological record shows evidence of multiple mass extinction events that could have erased entire civilizations from the fossil record. Perhaps we're not the first human society to reach industrial levels of development, but rather the latest in a series of technological civilizations that have risen and fallen throughout Earth's history. But other evidence suggests something even more extraordinary. In 2008, archaeologists working in the Carpathian Mountains discovered a series of caves containing what appeared to be ancient mining operations. The precision of the excavation work and the sophisticated ventilation systems suggested advanced engineering capabilities. But the caves had been sealed for over 50,000 years, and the tools found within were made from materials that don't match any known human technology from that period. Carbon dating of organic materials found in the caves confirmed their age, but raised even more questions. The mining operations appeared to have been targeting specific mineral deposits that are crucial for electronic manufacturing, materials that have no obvious use for primitive human societies, but are essential for advanced technological applications. It was as if someone had been systematically extracting the raw materials needed for sophisticated industrial processes tens of thousands of years before such technology should have existed. Similar mining sites have been discovered in South Africa, where ancient shafts extend deep underground with precision engineering that rivals modern capabilities. The shafts show evidence of advanced excavation techniques and sophisticated support systems that prevented collapse over thousands of years. Local legends speak of these mines being worked by beings who came from the stars, who extracted materials for purposes that the indigenous peoples didn't understand. The pattern repeats across continents and cultures. Ancient texts from around the world describe beings who possessed advanced technology and who interacted with early human societies. The Sumerian tablets speak of the Anunnaki, who descended from the heavens and taught humans the arts of civilization. Hindu scriptures describe the Vimanas, flying vehicles capable of traveling between worlds. Native American traditions tell of star people who came from the sky and shared knowledge with tribal ancestors. For too long, these accounts have been dismissed as mythology or primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena. But when examined alongside the physical evidence of anomalous artifacts and impossible archaeological discoveries, they begin to form a coherent picture of contact between early human societies and technologically advanced beings whose capabilities far exceeded anything in the historical record. Recent analysis of ancient DNA has revealed anomalies that support this possibility. Human genetic development shows signs of rapid advancement that don't fit standard evolutionary models. Certain genetic markers appear to have been introduced into the human genome much more recently than gradual evolution would suggest, as if our species received genetic modifications that accelerated our cognitive development. Dr. Lloyd Pye, who spent years studying human genetic anomalies, noted that our species shows signs of what he called genetic intervention. Compared to other primates, humans possess genetic sequences that appear to be artificially enhanced, particularly in areas related to brain development and cognitive function. The changes are too rapid and too specific to be explained by natural selection alone. This genetic evidence aligns with archaeological discoveries that suggest human technological development accelerated dramatically around 12,000 years ago. The transition from hunter-gatherer societies to agricultural civilizations happened with remarkable speed, as if someone had provided early humans with knowledge and techniques that allowed them to rapidly advance their capabilities. The Göbekli Tepe complex in Turkey exemplifies this mysterious acceleration. Built over 11,000 years ago by people who were supposedly primitive hunter-gatherers, the site demonstrates sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, advanced construction techniques, and artistic capabilities that shouldn't have existed for several more millennia. The precision of the stone carving and the complexity of the site's design suggest that its builders had access to knowledge and tools that far exceeded anything in the archaeological record from that period. But perhaps most intriguingly, Göbekli Tepe appears to have been deliberately buried soon after its construction. Massive amounts of earth and debris were carefully placed over the entire complex, preserving it for future discovery. This suggests that its builders knew it would be forgotten and wanted to ensure that evidence of their capabilities would survive for later civilizations to uncover. Similar patterns exist at other ancient sites around the world. Many of the most sophisticated ancient monuments show evidence of being built in multiple phases, with earlier construction displaying far more advanced techniques than later additions. It's as if the original builders possessed capabilities that were gradually lost over time, with later civilizations attempting to maintain or reconstruct what they couldn't fully understand. The Egyptian pyramids exemplify this pattern. The Great Pyramid shows evidence of precision engineering and advanced construction techniques that far exceed the capabilities demonstrated in later pyramid construction. The precision of the internal chambers, the accuracy of the astronomical alignments, and the sophisticated mathematics embedded in its design suggest that its builders possessed knowledge that was subsequently lost to later Egyptian dynasties. Recent discoveries within the pyramid complex have revealed chambers and passages that don't appear on any ancient blueprints or records. These hidden spaces contain artifacts and inscriptions that don't match known Egyptian cultural traditions. Some researchers believe these chambers may contain evidence of the pyramid's true builders and purpose, but access to these areas has been severely restricted by Egyptian authorities. The pattern of suppression extends far beyond Egypt. Around the world, archaeological sites that contain anomalous evidence are being sealed off, restricted, or simply ignored by mainstream academia. Artifacts that don't fit conventional timelines disappear into private collections or are dismissed as hoaxes without proper investigation. And researchers who pursue evidence of ancient advanced civilizations often find their careers threatened and their funding cut off. This systematic suppression raises uncomfortable questions about what certain institutions might be trying to hide. If evidence of ancient advanced civilizations is genuine, its revelation would fundamentally challenge our understanding of human development and our place in cosmic history. It would force us to reconsider not just where we came from, but whether we're alone in the universe and whether we've been visited by non-human intelligences throughout our history. The evidence suggests that Earth may have been a crossroads for advanced beings for far longer than we've ever imagined. The anomalous artifacts, the impossible construction techniques, the genetic anomalies, and the suppressed archaeological discoveries all point toward the same conclusion. We are not the first technological civilization to exist on this planet, and we may not be alone even now. As we continue to uncover more of these ancient mysteries, we're being forced to confront possibilities that challenge our most fundamental assumptions about reality itself. The story of human civilization may be far more complex, far more extraordinary, and far more connected to cosmic influences than we've ever dared to consider. But the evidence is mounting, and it's becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. Hidden in plain sight, buried beneath layers of earth and suppressed by institutional gatekeepers, lies proof that our past is not what we've been taught to believe. And once you begin to see the pattern, once you start connecting the dots between these seemingly impossible discoveries, you realize that everything you thought you knew about human history needs to be reconsidered. The question is no longer whether advanced beings existed in our ancient past. The question is who they were, where they came from, and whether they're still here, watching, waiting, perhaps preparing for their next intervention in human development. Because if the evidence is correct, if these artifacts and anomalies represent genuine proof of ancient advanced civilizations, then we may be on the verge of the greatest revelation in human history. And that revelation may change everything we think we know about our past, our present, and our future among the stars. The silence that followed was deafening. In the sterile halls of the Smithsonian Institution, behind doors marked with warnings about unauthorized access, sits a collection that could rewrite human history overnight. Objects so impossible, so fundamentally wrong, according to everything we know about our past, that they've been quietly buried in bureaucratic red tape for nearly a century. What I'm about to tell you will make you question everything. Because hidden in plain sight, scattered across our planet in locations so remote that few will ever see them, are structures that mock our understanding of ancient capabilities. Monuments built with precision that modern technology struggles to match. Artifacts crafted from materials that shouldn't exist. And evidence of knowledge so advanced that it suggests our ancestors weren't primitive at all. They were something else entirely. Tonight, we're going deeper into mysteries that have been deliberately obscured from public view. We're talking about discoveries so profound that they threaten the very foundation of how we understand human development. Evidence that has been systematically suppressed by institutions that prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. And by the end of this journey, you'll understand why certain archaeological sites remain off-limits to researchers. Why artifacts disappear into private collections, never to be seen again, and why some discoveries are considered too dangerous for public knowledge. Because what we're about to explore suggests that we are not the first advanced civilization to call this planet home, and we may not be alone even now. In the remote valleys of Peru, where the air grows thin and the mountains pierce the clouds like ancient spears, lies a mystery that challenges every assumption we hold about our ancestors. Carved directly into cliffsides that rise thousands of feet above the valley floor, intricate patterns and symbols cover surfaces so vast they can only be fully appreciated from the air. But these aren't simple cave paintings or primitive markings. They're technical diagrams, mathematical equations, star charts so precise they track celestial movements across millennia. The Nazca lines have captured imaginations for decades, but they represent just a fraction of Peru's impossible archaeological landscape. Hidden throughout the Andes are sites that demonstrate engineering capabilities that shouldn't have existed thousands of years before the invention of modern machinery. Stone blocks cut with laser-like precision, underground tunnel systems that extend for hundreds of miles, and construction techniques that modern engineers admit they couldn't replicate today. Dr. Brian Förster, who has spent decades studying these sites, documented evidence of machining marks on granite surfaces that suggest the use of power tools operating at extremely high speeds. The spiral patterns left behind in the stone match signatures, typically produced by diamond-tipped industrial equipment. Yet these marks are found on structures that predate known metallurgy by thousands of years. But Peru's mysteries extend far beyond impressive stonework. Deep beneath the Andes lies a network of tunnels that may represent the most sophisticated underground engineering project in human history. These aren't crude caves or natural formations. but precisely constructed passages with smooth walls, perfect ventilation, and acoustic properties that suggest they were designed for purposes we don't fully understand. The tunnels connect various ancient sites across hundreds of miles, creating a subterranean highway system that would challenge modern engineering capabilities. The precision required to maintain proper elevation gradients across such distances, to ensure adequate airflow throughout the system, and to create stable structural supports in earthquake-prone terrain, demonstrates knowledge of physics and engineering that rivals contemporary expertise. Local legends speak of these tunnels as pathways used by the gods, secret routes that connected sacred sites across the continent. But recent explorations have revealed chambers filled with artifacts that don't match any known cultural traditions. Stone tablets covered in symbols that don't correspond to any recognized writing system. Metallic objects that show signs of advanced manufacturing techniques. And crystalline formations that appear to be artificially created and arranged in geometric patterns that suggest technological purposes. The Peruvian government has restricted access to much of this underground network, citing safety concerns and the need to preserve archaeological integrity. But researchers who have been granted limited access describe discoveries that fundamentally challenge our understanding of ancient capabilities. They report finding chambers that appear to have been designed for specific acoustic properties, spaces where sound behaves in ways that suggest sophisticated knowledge of resonance and vibration. These acoustic anomalies aren't unique to Peru's underground sites. Ancient structures around the world demonstrate engineering principles that modern architects are only beginning to appreciate. The stone circles of Britain, the temples of Malta, the pyramids of Egypt, all incorporate acoustic properties that suggest their builders understood principles of sound manipulation that weren't formally recognized by science until the 20th century. But as we examine these acoustic marvels, we encounter evidence of something even more extraordinary. Many of these ancient sites appear to be connected by a global network of ley lines, invisible pathways that link sacred locations across vast distances. These connections aren't random. They follow precise geometric patterns that suggest a coordinated effort to create some kind of planetary grid system. The implications are staggering. If ancient peoples possessed knowledge of global geography sufficient to establish such a network, they must have had capabilities for long-distance travel and communication that far exceeded anything in the conventional historical record. They would have needed detailed maps of the entire planet, sophisticated navigation techniques, and methods for coordinating construction projects across multiple continents. Recent satellite analysis has revealed that many ancient monuments align with mathematical precision across thousands of miles of ocean and terrain. The Great Pyramid of Giza, Angkor Wat in Cambodia, Easter Island, and Machu Picchu in Peru all fall along geometric lines that demonstrate knowledge of the Earth's spherical nature and rotational dynamics. These alignments couldn't have been created by separate civilizations working independently. They require coordinated planning on a global scale. Dr. Carl Munk, a mathematician who has studied these alignments extensively, has demonstrated that ancient sites are positioned according to a sophisticated coordinate system based on the speed of light and other universal constants. The mathematical relationships are so precise that they suggest the builders possess detailed knowledge of physics that wasn't developed by mainstream science until the modern era. This global coordination becomes even more mysterious when we consider the time periods involved. Many of these aligned monuments were supposedly built by different civilizations separated by thousands of years. Yet the mathematical relationships between their positions suggest simultaneous planning and construction. Either our dating methods are fundamentally flawed, or these sites were built by a single global civilization that possessed capabilities we've never acknowledged. The evidence for such a civilization extends beyond impressive architecture. Around the world, megalithic sites contain stone blocks that have been moved and positioned in ways that defy conventional explanations. At Pumapunku in Bolivia, granite blocks weighing hundreds of tons were cut with tolerances measured in fractions of millimeters, and fitted together like precision machine parts. The closest quarry capable of providing such stones is located over 60 miles away, across terrain that would challenge modern heavy lifting equipment. Similar megalithic mysteries exist at sites across the globe. The trilithon stones at Baalbek in Lebanon each weigh over 800 tons, more than twice the capacity of the world's largest mobile crane. Yet they were somehow transported from a quarry half a mile away and positioned with such precision that they've remained stable for over 2,000 years. The logistics required for such an undertaking would challenge even contemporary engineering capabilities. At Easter Island, nearly 900 massive stone statues called moai dot the landscape. Recent excavations have revealed that many of these monuments extend deep underground, with full bodies that are proportionally as large as their famous heads. The precision of the carving is extraordinary, with fine details preserved in hard volcanic stone. The symmetry is so exact that it suggests the use of standardized templates or measuring devices. But perhaps most mysteriously, these massive sculptures were somehow transported across the island from a central quarry to their current positions. Local legends speak of the statues walking to their locations, guided by spiritual power. Recent experiments have shown that with the right technique, the moai can indeed be moved upright using coordinated rocking motions. But this discovery only deepens the mystery of how ancient islanders possessed such sophisticated knowledge of physics and engineering. The pattern repeats at megalithic sites around the world. Stones that shouldn't be movable have been transported across impossible distances. Blocks that shouldn't be cuttable have been shaped with precision that rivals modern manufacturing. And monuments that shouldn't exist have been constructed using techniques that remain mysterious even today. These achievements suggest that ancient peoples possess technologies and capabilities that have been systematically underestimated by conventional archaeology. But the evidence goes beyond impressive construction techniques. Hidden within these ancient monuments are encoded messages that demonstrate knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and physics that predates their supposed discovery by centuries or millennia. The Great Pyramid of Giza incorporates mathematical relationships that weren't formally recognized until the development of advanced geometry. Its dimensions encode the value of pi to remarkable precision, demonstrate knowledge of the Earth's circumference and rotational period, and incorporate astronomical alignments that track celestial movements across vast time periods. The precision required to embed such information in a massive stone structure suggests the builders possessed computational capabilities that rival modern mathematics. Similar mathematical encoding exists in megalithic monuments around the world. Stonehenge incorporates astronomical alignments that track not just obvious solar and lunar cycles, but subtle celestial events that occur over periods of thousands of years. The builders would have needed detailed observational records spanning multiple generations and sophisticated mathematical techniques to calculate and predict such long-term cycles. The Mayan calendar system demonstrates understanding of planetary cycles and celestial mechanics that required centuries of precise observation and mathematical calculation. Their ability to predict eclipses, planetary alignments, and other astronomical events with remarkable accuracy suggests they possessed observational capabilities and theoretical knowledge that rivals modern astronomy. But perhaps most intriguingly, many ancient calendar systems incorporate knowledge of cosmic cycles that extend far beyond human historical experience. They track movements of celestial bodies that have periods measured in tens of thousands of years, suggesting their creators had access to information that spans geological timescales. This knowledge couldn't have been acquired through normal human observation. It would require either advanced technological instruments or information provided by sources with vastly longer lifespans than human civilizations. The systematic nature of this advanced knowledge across multiple ancient cultures suggests it wasn't developed independently by separate societies. Instead, it appears to represent fragments of a much larger body of information that was somehow distributed globally and then gradually lost as civilizations rose and fell. The consistency of mathematical principles, astronomical knowledge, and construction techniques across continents and centuries points toward a common source of advanced understanding. This raises profound questions about the origin of such knowledge. If ancient peoples possess scientific understanding that rivals modern capabilities, where did it come from? How was it transmitted across vast distances and time periods? And why was so much of it subsequently lost, only to be rediscovered much later in human history? The answers may lie in examining not just what ancient peoples knew, but how they claim to have acquired that knowledge. Across cultures and continents, ancient texts describe contact with advanced beings who possessed capabilities that seemed magical to the people of the time. These beings are described as coming from the sky, from other worlds, or from dimensions beyond normal human experience. The Sumerian tablets speak of the Anunnaki, beings who descended from the heavens and taught humanity the arts of civilization. Hindu scriptures describe vimanas, flying vehicles capable of traveling vast distances through space and time. Native American traditions tell of star people who came from the sky and shared knowledge with tribal ancestors. Biblical accounts describe encounters with beings of immense power who possessed technologies that seemed divine to ancient observers. For generations, these accounts have been dismissed as mythology, primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena through supernatural narratives. But what if we've been looking at this backwards? What if these weren't stories at all, but historical records? Eyewitness accounts of actual events that shaped human development in ways we're only now beginning to understand. The evidence suggests that contact between early human societies and technologically advanced beings may have been far more common than mainstream archaeology acknowledges. And the physical proof of this interaction may be hidden in plain sight, embedded in the very monuments and artifacts that continue to baffle researchers today. Consider the Sumerian civilization, which emerged seemingly overnight in Mesopotamia around 4500 BCE. Within a few centuries, these people had developed writing, mathematics, astronomy, metallurgy, and complex legal systems. They built cities, established trade networks, and created literature that rivals modern works in its sophistication. Yet according to conventional archaeology, they had no predecessor civilizations to learn from. They simply appeared, fully formed, with capabilities that should have taken millennia to develop. The Sumerian tablets themselves provide a possible explanation. They describe in remarkable detail how the Anunnaki came from a planet called Nibiru and established colonies on Earth. These beings are described as possessing advanced technology, detailed knowledge of genetics, and the ability to travel between worlds. The tablets claim that the Anunnaki created modern humans through genetic manipulation, combining their own DNA with that of primitive hominids to produce a hybrid species capable of serving their needs. Dr. Zecharia Sitchin spent decades translating these ancient texts and argued that they represent literal historical accounts rather than mythological stories. His translations describe advanced beings who possessed flying vehicles, communication devices, and weapons that sound remarkably similar to modern technology. The level of technical detail in these accounts suggests first-hand knowledge of such capabilities, not imaginative speculation about divine powers. But the Sumerian accounts are just one piece of a much larger puzzle. Similar stories exist in virtually every ancient culture around the world, and the consistency of these narratives across vast distances and time periods suggests they may be describing the same phenomena from different perspectives. Ancient Egyptian texts speak of the Neteru, divine beings who ruled Egypt before the pharaohs and possessed knowledge of advanced sciences. The pyramid texts, some of the oldest religious writings in the world, describe these beings as having come from the stars and established civilization along the Nile. The precision of Egyptian astronomical knowledge, their advanced understanding of human anatomy, and their sophisticated engineering capabilities all suggest they had access to information that exceeded normal human development patterns. Hindu scriptures contain perhaps the most detailed descriptions of advanced ancient technology. The Mahabharata and other texts describe vimanas, flying vehicles with capabilities that sound remarkably similar to modern aircraft and spacecraft. These descriptions include technical specifications for propulsion systems, navigation equipment, and weapons that create explosions comparable to nuclear detonations. The level of detail suggests the authors had direct experience with such technologies. The Vaimanika Shastra, an ancient Sanskrit text, provides what appears to be a technical manual for constructing and operating vimanas. It describes different types of aircraft designed for various purposes, including vehicles capable of becoming invisible, traveling underwater, and journeying to other worlds. The text includes diagrams and specifications that have been analysed by modern aerospace engineers, who have found them to be surprisingly sophisticated and technically feasible. But perhaps most disturbing are the descriptions of ancient weapons that sound remarkably similar to modern military technology. The Mahabharata describes the Brahmastra, a weapon capable of destroying entire armies and leaving the land uninhabitable for generations. The effects described include radiation sickness, genetic mutations, and environmental contamination that matches what we know about nuclear warfare. These accounts were written thousands of years before nuclear physics was developed, yet they describe phenomena that could only be understood through direct experience with such weapons. Similar descriptions exist in other ancient texts. The Bible contains accounts of the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah that include details consistent with nuclear detonation, Lot's wife turning into a pillar of salt, the complete obliteration of the cities, and the long-term uninhabitable nature of the region all match patterns we associate with nuclear destruction. Archaeological evidence from the region shows signs of extreme heat exposure and unusual glass formations that could be consistent with nuclear weapons testing. Celtic traditions speak of the Tuatha De Danann, beings who possessed magical technologies that allowed them to control weather, communicate across vast distances, and travel instantly between locations. These capabilities sound remarkably similar to advanced scientific technologies when stripped of their mythological language. Weather control could describe atmospheric manipulation techniques. Instant communication could refer to advanced telecommunications. Instant travel could describe transportation technologies beyond our current understanding. The consistency of these accounts across cultures that had no contact with each other suggests they may be describing actual historical events rather than independent mythological developments. The technical details are too specific and too consistent to be explained as coincidental imagination. It appears that ancient peoples around the world had contact with beings who possessed technologies that seemed magical, but were actually highly advanced applications of scientific principles. This interpretation gains support from physical evidence that mainstream archaeology has struggled to explain. The advanced metallurgy found in ancient artifacts, the precision engineering of megalithic monuments, and the sophisticated astronomical knowledge encoded in ancient sites all suggest that early human civilizations had access to technical information that exceeded their supposed developmental level. But if ancient humans had contact with technologically advanced beings, what happened to them? Why did this advanced knowledge gradually disappear from human civilization? The answer may lie in understanding the cyclical nature of human development and the fragility of technological civilizations. Geological evidence shows that Earth has experienced multiple catastrophic events within human history that would have been capable of destroying entire civilizations. Massive volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, sudden climate changes, and other natural disasters could have wiped out advanced societies and forced survivors to rebuild from primitive conditions. Each cycle of destruction and rebuilding would have resulted in the loss of accumulated knowledge and technological capabilities. The Younger Dryas period, approximately 12,800 years ago, marks one such catastrophic event. Geological evidence shows that Earth experienced rapid climate change that included massive flooding, temperature fluctuations, and environmental disruption that would have devastated any existing civilizations. Many researchers believe this event may have destroyed an advanced global civilization that had achieved technological capabilities comparable to our own. Graham Hancock and other researchers have argued that sites like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey represent remnants of this pre-catastrophe civilization. Built over 11,000 years ago by people who were supposedly primitive hunter-gatherers, Göbekli Tepe demonstrates sophisticated knowledge of astronomy, advanced construction techniques, and artistic capabilities that shouldn't have existed for several more millennia. The precision of the stone carving and the complexity of the site's astronomical alignments suggest that its builders possessed knowledge and capabilities that were subsequently lost. The deliberate burial of Göbekli Tepe soon after its construction adds another layer to the mystery. Massive amounts of earth and debris were carefully placed over the entire complex, preserving it for future discovery. This suggests that its builders knew their civilization was ending and wanted to ensure that evidence of their capabilities would survive for later societies to uncover. Similar patterns exist at other ancient sites around the world. Many of the most sophisticated monuments show evidence of being built in multiple phases, with earlier construction displaying far more advanced techniques than later additions. It's as if the original builders possessed capabilities that were gradually lost over time, with later civilizations attempting to maintain or reconstruct what they couldn't fully understand. This cyclical model of human development suggests that we may not be the first technological civilization to emerge on Earth. We may be the latest in a series of advanced societies that have risen, flourished, and ultimately fallen, leaving behind only scattered artifacts and fragmented memories preserved in myths and legends. Each cycle would have begun with survivors of the previous catastrophe, carrying fragmentary knowledge of their former capabilities, but lacking the infrastructure and resources to immediately rebuild their technological base. Over generations, this knowledge would have been preserved in oral traditions, religious texts, and symbolic representations that gradually became disconnected from their original technical meanings. What began as instruction manuals for advanced technologies would have been transformed into mythological stories about gods and magical beings. The technical specifications would have been preserved as ritual formulas whose original purposes were forgotten. This process of knowledge degradation explains why ancient texts contain remarkably accurate technical information embedded within mythological narratives. The core information was preserved, but the context necessary to understand its practical applications was lost. Modern researchers who approach these texts with technical knowledge can extract the scientific principles, while traditional scholars who focus on literary and cultural analysis see only mythology. The implications of this cyclical model are profound. It suggests that human potential may be far greater than we currently recognize, and that our present level of technological development may represent a rediscovery of capabilities that existed in previous cycles of civilization. It means that knowledge and technologies we consider cutting edge may actually be variations on principles that were understood and applied by our ancestors thousands of years ago. This perspective also suggests that we may not be alone in our current technological development. If advanced beings have interacted with human civilizations throughout history, there's no reason to believe such contact has ceased. The same forces that guided previous human societies through technological development may still be operating today, influencing our progress in ways we don't fully recognize or understand. Recent developments in aerospace technology, quantum physics, and genetic engineering may represent not just human innovation, but the gradual rediscovery of knowledge that existed in previous cycles of development. The rapid pace of technological advancement in the past century could be explained as the natural result of reaching a critical threshold where accumulated knowledge begins to unlock previously hidden principles. But this raises uncomfortable questions about the nature of human progress and our ultimate destiny. If we're following a cyclical pattern that has repeated multiple times throughout history, what does that mean for our future? Are we destined to achieve great technological heights only to face catastrophic collapse and regression? Or have we reached a point in our development where we can break free from these historical patterns The answer may depend on whether we can learn from the mistakes of previous civilizations and develop technologies that are more sustainable and resilient than those of our predecessors. It may also depend on our willingness to acknowledge and understand the influences that have shaped human development throughout history, including the possibility that we've had guidance from sources beyond our current understanding. As we continue to uncover evidence of ancient advanced civilizations and their connection to technologically superior beings, we're forced to confront fundamental questions about human origins, potential, and destiny. The mysteries we've explored represent more than just archaeological puzzles. They're clues to understanding our true place in cosmic history and the forces that have shaped human development across vast spans of time. The evidence suggests that we are not isolated primitives struggling to understand the universe through our own limited efforts. Instead, we may be part of a much larger cosmic community, inheritors of knowledge and capabilities that stretch back through cycles of civilization that span thousands or perhaps millions of years. Our current technological achievements may represent not the pinnacle of human development, but rather a waypoint on a much longer journey toward understanding our true potential and our connection to the broader cosmos. And if that's the case, then the mysteries we've explored tonight are more than just interesting anomalies. They're glimpses of a hidden history that reveals humanity's true heritage and points toward a future that may be far more extraordinary than we've ever dared to imagine. The question isn't whether ancient advanced civilizations existed or whether they had contact with beings from beyond Earth. The evidence for both possibilities is mounting and becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. The real question is what this means for us today and whether we're ready to accept the implications of a past that's far stranger and far more connected to cosmic influences than we've ever been taught to believe. The room fell silent as the lead archaeologist held up the small metallic object, his hands trembling slightly. After 3 decades of excavations, Dr. Harrison had seen thousands of artifacts pulled from ancient sites around the world. But this one was different. This one shouldn't exist. The carbon dating results lay scattered across his desk like pieces of a shattered worldview. The object had been found buried beneath 15 feet of undisturbed sediment, in layers of earth that geological surveys confirmed were over 40,000 years old. Yet the metal itself was an alloy that wouldn't be developed by human science until the space age, and etched into its surface were symbols that matched no known ancient writing system, but bore an unsettling resemblance to modern circuit diagrams. "This changes everything," Dr. Harrison whispered to his assistant, though he knew those words would never appear in any official report. Because some discoveries are too dangerous for public consumption. Some evidence threatens to unravel the comfortable narrative we've built around human progress and our place in the cosmos. What you're about to see will challenge every assumption you hold about ancient history. The artifacts I'm going to show you have been quietly catalogued and then mysteriously disappeared from public view. The sites I'll describe have been cordoned off by government agencies with explanations that don't quite add up. And the researchers who've tried to publish their findings have found their careers suddenly derailed by forces they couldn't identify. But the evidence exists, hidden in plain sight, waiting for those brave enough to look beyond the sanitized version of history we've been fed since childhood. Tonight, we're going where mainstream archaeology refuses to tread. Into the shadows where impossible artifacts lurk, into archives that were never meant to be opened, into a version of human history so extraordinary that it would fundamentally alter our understanding of who we are and where we came from. And I warn you now, once you see what I'm about to show you, there's no going back to the comfortable illusions of conventional history. Because what lies buried in our past isn't just advanced technology or lost civilizations. It's evidence that we were never alone. The discovery that shattered everything began with a routine construction project in Turkey. Workers extending a subway line beneath the ancient city of Derinkuyu were following standard procedures, boring through rock that had remained untouched for millennia. But when their drilling equipment suddenly broke through into a vast hollow space, they knew they'd found something extraordinary. What lay beneath the earth was a city. Not the ruins of a city, but an intact underground metropolis that could house over 20,000 people. Multi-level chambers carved directly into bedrock stretched down 11 stories deep. Ventilation shafts provided fresh air to the deepest levels. Water systems channeled underground streams throughout the complex. Storage rooms could hold enough food to sustain the entire population for months. But this wasn't some medieval hiding place built during times of war. Carbon dating of organic materials found throughout the complex revealed construction that began over 8,000 years ago. The engineering required to create such a vast underground city would challenge modern capabilities. The precision of the ventilation systems, the complexity of the water management, the structural integrity needed to prevent collapse. All accomplished by people who supposedly possessed only primitive tools. Dr. Yilmaz Selim, the archaeologist who led the initial survey, described what his team found in those first chambers. Stone surfaces that were smooth to the touch, carved with a precision that seemed impossible for the period. Circular doorways that could be sealed from the inside using massive stone discs that rolled into place with mechanical efficiency. And chambers designed with acoustic properties that amplified whispers while dampening louder sounds, creating communication networks throughout the complex. But perhaps most unsettling were the deepest levels. As excavation teams descended farther into the earth, they discovered chambers that appeared to serve no obvious purpose. Empty rooms with walls that were perfectly smooth, showing no tool marks or construction evidence. Spaces that seemed designed for functions that the archaeologists couldn't identify or understand. And then there were the symbols. Carved into walls throughout the complex were markings that didn't match any known ancient writing systems. Geometric patterns that seemed to follow mathematical principles. Diagrams that looked remarkably similar to modern technical schematics. When computer analysis was applied to these symbols, patterns emerged that suggested they might represent some kind of instruction manual or technical documentation. Dr. Selim's team wasn't allowed to complete their investigation. Within months of the initial discovery, Turkish authorities classified the site and restricted access to a small team of government-approved researchers. The official explanation cited concerns about structural stability and the need to preserve archaeological integrity. But Dr. Selim later confided to colleagues that his team had been making discoveries that didn't fit the accepted timeline of human development. The Derinkuyu underground city wasn't an isolated discovery. Across Turkey, similar complexes began surfacing as construction projects and archaeological surveys revealed the existence of a vast subterranean network. These weren't separate cities, but connected chambers and tunnels that stretched across hundreds of miles of underground space. The engineering required to construct such an extensive network would have demanded coordination and planning on an unprecedented scale. But who built this underground civilization? And why? Traditional archaeology suggests these complexes were created as hiding places during periods of invasion and warfare. The theory holds that early Christian communities carved these chambers to escape religious persecution, creating temporary refuges until threats passed. But this explanation doesn't account for the sophistication of the engineering, the vast scale of the construction, or the apparent permanence of the installations. Recent analysis has revealed details that challenge conventional explanations. The ventilation systems show evidence of understanding atmospheric pressure and airflow dynamics that weren't formally recognized until modern physics. The water management systems demonstrate knowledge of hydraulics and fluid dynamics that predates their supposed discovery by centuries. And the structural engineering shows applications of principles that shouldn't have been understood until the development of modern architecture. Moreover, the deepest and most sophisticated sections of these complexes appear to be the oldest, not the newest, as if the original builders possessed capabilities that were gradually lost over time. with later inhabitants making crude additions to structures they couldn't fully comprehend or replicate. This pattern repeats at underground sites across the globe. In Romania, construction workers uncovered a network of tunnels that extends for miles beneath the Carpathian Mountains. The passages show evidence of precision engineering and sophisticated construction techniques, yet they're sealed within rock formations that geological dating places far older than known human civilizations in the region. The Romanian tunnels contain chambers filled with artifacts that don't match any known cultural traditions. Stone tablets covered in symbols that don't correspond to recognized writing systems. Metallic objects that show signs of advanced manufacturing techniques. And most mysteriously, crystalline formations that appear to be artificially created and arranged in geometric patterns that suggest some kind of technological purpose. Access to these sites has been severely restricted by Romanian authorities, with official explanations citing safety concerns and the need for extensive geological surveys. But researchers who were granted limited access before the restrictions were imposed describe discoveries that fundamentally challenge our understanding of European prehistory. They report finding evidence of technologies and capabilities that shouldn't have existed thousands of years before the Roman Empire reached the region. Similar underground complexes exist in China, where deep mining operations have uncovered chambers that predate known Chinese civilizations by millennia. These sites contain jade objects carved with mathematical precision that requires modern tools to replicate. Bronze implements that show evidence of alloy compositions not developed until the industrial age. And stone sculptures that demonstrate an understanding of human anatomy so detailed that they rival Renaissance masterpieces. The Chinese government has classified most of these discoveries, restricting access to a small number of approved researchers and prohibiting the publication of findings that don't conform to official historical narratives. But leaked photographs and documents suggest the existence of underground installations that demonstrate engineering capabilities that exceed anything in the historical record for ancient China. What's particularly intriguing about these underground sites is their apparent connectivity. Satellite analysis has revealed geological anomalies that suggest tunnel systems may extend far beyond individual complexes. Ground-penetrating radar has detected linear voids that stretch across international borders, implying the existence of underground networks that span continents. The implications are staggering. If these tunnel systems are artificial and interconnected, they would represent the largest construction project in human history. The coordination required to plan and execute such an undertaking would have demanded organizational capabilities that rival modern governments. The engineering knowledge needed to maintain structural integrity across such vast distances would have required understanding of geology, physics, and materials science that wasn't supposed to exist in ancient times. But perhaps most disturbing is the question of purpose. Why would ancient peoples invest such enormous effort in creating underground cities and tunnel networks? What were they hiding from? Or what were they preparing for? Some researchers have suggested that these complexes were built as refuges against natural disasters. The underground cities could have provided shelter during periods of extreme climate change, volcanic eruptions, or other environmental catastrophes. The tunnel networks might have allowed underground travel during times when surface conditions were hostile to human survival. This interpretation gains support from geological evidence showing that Earth has experienced multiple catastrophic events within human history. The Younger Dryas period, approximately 12,800 years ago, brought rapid climate change that included massive flooding, temperature fluctuations, and environmental disruption that would have been devastating to any surface civilizations. Similar events occurred throughout human prehistory, each capable of wiping out entire societies and forcing survivors to seek shelter in underground refuges. But other evidence suggests more complex motivations. Many of these underground sites contain chambers that appear designed for long-term habitation rather than temporary shelter. The sophisticated infrastructure The permanent installations and the apparent planning for extended occupation suggest that their builders were preparing for threats that might persist for generations, rather than brief, catastrophic events. The presence of advanced technology and sophisticated engineering in these sites raises additional questions about their creators' motivations and capabilities. If ancient peoples possessed knowledge and tools advanced enough to construct such elaborate underground civilizations, why did they choose to build downward rather than upward? What advantages did underground construction offer that surface building could not provide? One possibility is that underground sites offered concealment from observation. If ancient peoples were concerned about being detected by hostile forces, either terrestrial or otherwise, underground construction would have provided effective camouflage. Advanced civilizations could have maintained sophisticated technologies and capabilities, while remaining hidden from those who might seek to exploit or destroy them. Another possibility is that underground construction offered protection from threats originating above ground. If ancient peoples were aware of dangers from aerial attack, cosmic radiation, or other hazards from space, underground facilities would have provided effective shielding. The deep construction of many of these sites suggests their builders were concerned about threats that could penetrate significant distances below the surface. The global distribution of these underground complexes suggests they may have been part of a coordinated defensive network. Sites in Turkey, Romania, China, and other locations around the world show similar construction techniques, comparable levels of sophistication, and evidence of possible interconnection through tunnel systems. This implies the existence of a civilization capable of global coordination and planning, with resources and capabilities that far exceeded anything in the conventional historical record. Recent discoveries have added new dimensions to this mystery. In Peru, researchers have uncovered tunnel systems that extend deep into the Andes Mountains, connecting various ancient surface sites across hundreds of miles of rugged terrain. These tunnels show evidence of precision engineering and sophisticated construction techniques that rival modern capabilities. The Peruvian tunnels contain chambers filled with artifacts that don't match known pre-Columbian cultural traditions. Stone tablets covered in symbols that don't correspond to any recognized writing system. Metallic objects that show signs of advanced manufacturing techniques. And crystalline formations that appear to be artificially created and arranged in geometric patterns that suggest technological purposes. Carbon dating of organic materials found within these tunnels indicates construction that began thousands of years before the Inca Empire reached its peak. Yet the engineering sophistication and construction techniques demonstrated in these passages exceed anything known from pre-Columbian civilizations in South America. The Peruvian government has restricted access to much of this underground network, citing safety concerns and the need to preserve archaeological integrity. But researchers who have been granted limited access describe discoveries that challenge fundamental assumptions about ancient South American capabilities. They report finding chambers that appear to have been designed for specific acoustic properties, spaces where sound behaves in ways that suggest sophisticated knowledge of resonance and vibration. Some of these chambers contain crystalline formations that seem to respond to sound waves, creating optical effects that suggest they may have served technological rather than purely decorative purposes. The acoustic properties of these underground chambers aren't unique to Peru. Similar phenomena have been documented in underground sites around the world, suggesting that ancient builders possessed detailed knowledge of sound manipulation and acoustic engineering. These discoveries imply that underground complexes may have served functions beyond simple shelter or storage, incorporating technologies and capabilities that we're only beginning to understand. But perhaps most intriguing are the connections between different underground sites. Analysis of construction techniques, architectural styles, and artifact types suggests that many of these complexes may have been built by the same civilization or related groups sharing common knowledge and capabilities. The similarities extend beyond general engineering principles to specific details of construction methods, symbolic systems, and technological applications. This implies the existence of a global civilization that possessed advanced knowledge and capabilities, operating on a scale that would have required coordination and communication across vast distances. Such a civilization would have needed sophisticated transportation methods, advanced communication technologies, and organizational structures that could maintain coherence across continents and potentially across centuries or millennia. The evidence for such a civilization exists not only in underground complexes, but in the advanced technologies and impossible artifacts we've already examined. The precision metallurgy, the sophisticated astronomical knowledge, the advanced engineering capabilities all point toward the same conclusion. Human history includes periods of technological and scientific advancement that have been systematically overlooked or suppressed by conventional archaeology. As we piece together evidence from underground sites around the world, we begin to see the outline of a hidden history, a story of advanced civilizations that chose to build downward rather than upward, that developed technologies we're only now beginning to rediscover, and that may have possessed knowledge of threats and opportunities that extend far beyond Earth itself. The question isn't whether these underground civilizations existed. The physical evidence is overwhelming and continues to mount with each new discovery. The question is what happened to them, why they chose concealment over visibility, and whether their knowledge and capabilities were truly lost or simply hidden, waiting for the right time to emerge again. Because as we delve deeper into these underground mysteries, we begin to realize that the answers may lie not in our past, but in our future. The same forces that drove ancient peoples to seek shelter beneath the earth may still be operating today. The same threats that motivated the construction of vast underground networks may still be present, waiting for those with the knowledge and courage to recognize them. And if that's the case, then these underground sites may represent more than just archaeological curiosities. They may be messages from our ancestors, warnings about dangers we haven't yet recognized, or instructions for survival strategies we haven't yet understood. The sophisticated engineering, the advanced technologies, and the global coordination required to create these complexes suggest that their builders possess knowledge that could be crucial for our own survival and development. The evidence suggests that beneath our feet lies a hidden world that could transform our understanding of human potential and cosmic reality. A world built by civilizations that achieved capabilities we're only now approaching, guided by knowledge that may be essential for navigating the challenges that lie ahead. But accessing this hidden world requires more than archaeological excavation. It demands a willingness to question fundamental assumptions about human history, to consider possibilities that challenge our most basic beliefs about progress and civilization, and to acknowledge that our ancestors may have been far more advanced and far more aware of cosmic realities than we've ever been taught to believe. The underground cities and tunnel networks represent just the beginning of a mystery that extends far beyond architecture and engineering. They're gateways to understanding a hidden history that could reveal humanity's true heritage and point toward a future that may be both more dangerous and more extraordinary than we've ever imagined. And as we continue to uncover evidence of these ancient underground civilizations, we're forced to confront the possibility that the surface world we think we know may be just the visible tip of a much larger and far more complex reality. A reality where advanced beings have been operating beneath our awareness for thousands of years, maintaining knowledge and capabilities that could reshape our understanding of everything we thought we knew about human history and our place in the cosmos. The transmission cut out at exactly 3:47 a.m. Dr. Sarah Chen stared at her computer screen in the cramped research station, watching the last fragments of data stream in from the archaeological site 12,000 miles away. For 3 weeks, her team had been documenting discoveries that defied every law of physics she'd spent her career studying. Artifacts that seemed to bend light around them, stone structures that generated their own electromagnetic fields, and symbols that, when decoded, revealed mathematical equations that wouldn't be discovered by human science for another century. But now the feed was dead, the satellite connection severed. And when she tried calling the excavation site, she got only silence. The next morning, official reports would claim the entire team had been evacuated due to unstable ground conditions. The site would be sealed indefinitely, and the artifacts that had taken 3 weeks to carefully document would simply vanish from all records, as if they had never existed at all. Dr. Chen knew better. She'd seen this pattern before. The sudden communication blackouts, the convenient explanations, the systematic erasure of evidence that didn't fit the approved narrative. Because some discoveries are too dangerous to acknowledge. Some truths are too disruptive to the carefully maintained illusion of human progress. What her team had found wasn't just advanced ancient technology, it was proof that our entire understanding of reality itself might be fundamentally wrong. Evidence that consciousness, matter, and energy operate according to principles that mainstream science refuses to admit. Principles that ancient civilizations not only understood, but mastered to a degree that makes our current technology look primitive by comparison. Tonight, I'm going to show you discoveries that have been buried by institutions with resources you can't imagine and motivations you wouldn't believe. Artifacts so impossible that they challenge not just our understanding of the past, but our assumptions about the nature of existence itself. Evidence that consciousness and matter are connected in ways that would revolutionize every field of human knowledge if it were ever allowed to see the light of day. But first, I need you to understand something. The moment you see what I'm about to reveal, you become part of a very dangerous conversation. Because what we're dealing with here isn't just ancient history, it's technology that could transform our world overnight. Knowledge that could shift the balance of power between nations, corporations, and the forces that really control human development. So I ask you now, before we go any further, are you ready to see evidence that will fundamentally change how you view reality itself? Because once you understand what our ancestors really achieved, once you see the technologies they developed and the principles they discovered, there's no going back to the comfortable illusions we've been living under. The truth is far stranger and far more extraordinary than you've ever been told. And it's been hiding in plain sight for thousands of years. Deep in the vaults of the Vatican, behind security measures that rival nuclear facilities, sits a collection of artifacts that church officials pray will never be seen by the public. These aren't religious relics or historical treasures. They're objects that demonstrate technological capabilities so advanced that they seem to operate outside the known laws of physics. The collection began forming in the 16th century, when Jesuit missionaries returned from remote regions carrying items that local populations claimed possessed miraculous powers, stones that glowed without heat, metals that remained perfectly balanced regardless of how they were positioned, crystals that seemed to respond to human thought by changing color and temperature. At first, church authorities assumed these were either clever tricks or manifestations of divine power. But as the collection grew and scholars began studying the objects more carefully, a disturbing pattern emerged. These artifacts weren't miraculous at all. They were technological, products of scientific understanding that was supposed to be impossible for the civilizations that created them. Father Alessandro Toretti, the Vatican's chief archivist in the 17th century, documented his observations in encrypted journals that remained classified for over 300 years. When portions were finally declassified in the 1980s, they revealed descriptions of objects that modern scientists still struggle to explain. One artifact, described as a sphere of perpetual motion, appeared to rotate continuously without any external energy source. When examined by Toretti's team, they found no mechanism that could account for the movement. The sphere generated no heat, created no friction, and showed no signs of wearing down despite rotating for decades. Modern physicists who have studied similar objects suggest they may operate using principles of zero-point energy extraction. tapping into quantum fluctuations that exist even in supposedly empty space. Another object, referred to in the archives as the mirror of true sight, was a polished metal disc that seemed to display images of distant locations when viewed under specific conditions. Toretti wrote that observers could see events occurring hundreds of miles away with perfect clarity, as if they were standing in those locations. The technology required for such capabilities wouldn't be developed by mainstream science until the advent of satellite communications and digital imaging systems, but perhaps most unsettling was an artifact known as the Stone of Whispers, a crystalline formation that appeared to respond to human consciousness. When individuals focused their thoughts on specific questions while touching the crystal, it would generate subtle vibrations that seemed to convey information. Toretti noted that the responses often included knowledge that the questioner couldn't possibly have possessed, suggesting the crystal was accessing information from sources beyond normal human experience. These descriptions might sound like fantasy if they existed in isolation, but similar artifacts have been discovered at archaeological sites around the world, each demonstrating capabilities that challenge our understanding of ancient technological development. The pattern suggests that prehistoric civilizations possessed knowledge of consciousness, matter interaction that we're only now beginning to explore through quantum mechanics and consciousness research. Dr. William Tiller, a Stanford physicist who spent decades studying the interface between consciousness and physical reality, documented numerous cases of ancient artifacts that seemed to respond to mental intention. His research revealed that many of these objects contained crystalline structures arranged in geometric patterns that matched theoretical models for consciousness-responsive materials. The precision required to create such arrangements would have demanded understanding of atomic structure and quantum mechanics that supposedly didn't exist until the 20th century. The implications extend far beyond impressive ancient craftsmanship. These artifacts suggest that consciousness itself may be a fundamental force in the universe, capable of directly influencing matter and energy in ways that mainstream science is only beginning to acknowledge. If ancient peoples understood and utilized these principles, it would explain many of the impossible achievements we've already examined. The precision stonework at megalithic sites could have been accomplished using consciousness-directed energy rather than mechanical tools. The transportation of massive stone blocks could have involved manipulation of gravitational fields through focused mental intention. The advanced astronomical knowledge encoded in ancient monuments could have been acquired through direct consciousness interface with cosmic information fields. This interpretation gains support from recent discoveries in quantum physics that suggest consciousness may indeed play a fundamental role in shaping physical reality. The observer effect in quantum mechanics demonstrates that the act of observation influences the behavior of subatomic particles. Consciousness research has shown that focused intention can produce measurable effects on electronic equipment, random number generators, and biological systems. But ancient artifacts suggest that prehistoric peoples understood these principles far more deeply than our current scientific models acknowledge. They appear to have developed technologies that integrated consciousness and matter so seamlessly that the resulting capabilities seemed magical to later civilizations that had lost this knowledge. Consider the crystal skulls discovered in Central America. These artifacts are carved from single pieces of quartz crystal with such precision that modern gem cutters admit they couldn't replicate the work using contemporary tools. The crystal itself shows no tool marks, no evidence of mechanical shaping, as if it were formed rather than carved. When subjected to laser light, the skulls produce internal illumination effects that require understanding of optical physics that wasn't developed until the 19th century. But perhaps most mysteriously, individuals who spend extended time in proximity to these crystal skulls report enhanced psychic abilities, vivid dreams containing unknown information, and experiences that suggest expanded consciousness. Brain scans of people exposed to the skulls show unusual patterns of neural activity in regions associated with intuition and non-local awareness. Dr. Joshua Shapiro, who has studied crystal skulls for over 3 decades, documented cases where individuals received detailed technical information while in the presence of these artifacts. The information often related to advanced scientific principles that the recipients had no formal training to understand. Yet when examined by experts, the concepts proved to be scientifically accurate and often ahead of current theoretical development. These consciousness-responsive artifacts aren't limited to crystal skulls. Ancient sites around the world contain stone structures that seem designed to amplify and focus human consciousness. The stone circles of Britain, the temples of Malta, the pyramids of Egypt, all demonstrate architectural principles that enhance specific brainwave patterns associated with expanded awareness and psychic functioning. Dr. Robert Jahn, former Dean of Engineering at Princeton University, conducted extensive research on consciousness-matter interaction at ancient sites. His team documented measurable changes in electromagnetic fields around megalithic structures when individuals entered meditative states nearby. The changes weren't random, they followed specific patterns that suggested the monuments were designed to channel and amplify human consciousness in precise ways. The chambers within the Great Pyramid produce acoustic resonance at frequencies that match brainwave patterns associated with altered states of consciousness. Individuals who spend time in these chambers report profound spiritual experiences, enhanced intuitive abilities, and access to information that seems to come from beyond normal sensory channels. Similar effects occur at other ancient sites around the world. The underground chambers at Hypogeum in Malta generate acoustic properties that induce specific brainwave states in visitors. The stone circles at Newgrange in Ireland create electromagnetic anomalies that correlate with enhanced psychic functioning. The temples at Angkor Wat in Cambodia incorporate geometric proportions that seem designed to facilitate consciousness expansion. These discoveries suggest that ancient peoples understood consciousness as a fundamental force that could be harnessed and directed through appropriate technological applications. They built monuments not just as impressive architecture, but as consciousness amplification devices that could enhance human capabilities and provide access to information beyond normal sensory experience. The systematic suppression of research into consciousness-responsive artifacts and sites suggests that certain institutions recognize the revolutionary implications of this knowledge. If consciousness can directly influence matter and energy, it would fundamentally transform our understanding of physics, biology, psychology, and every other field of human knowledge. It would also provide access to capabilities that could shift the balance of power in ways that established authorities might find threatening. Dr. Hal Puthoff, a physicist who conducted classified research for the CIA on consciousness-based phenomena, has stated publicly that government agencies have been aware of consciousness-matter interaction for decades. His research demonstrated that trained individuals could use consciousness to access information from distant locations, influence electronic equipment, and even affect biological systems. But the results of this research remain largely classified, available only to those with appropriate security clearances. The ancient artifacts in the Vatican collection and similar objects in private collections around the world represent physical evidence of consciousness technologies that predate their supposed development by thousands of years. They suggest that prehistoric civilizations achieved understanding of mind-matter interaction that we're only now beginning to rediscover through cutting-edge scientific research. But perhaps more importantly, these artifacts demonstrate that the capabilities they represent are real and achievable. They prove that consciousness-responsive technology isn't science fiction, but science fact. The question isn't whether such capabilities exist, but whether modern civilization is ready to acknowledge and develop them openly. The evidence suggests that we may be on the threshold of a consciousness revolution that could transform human civilization as dramatically as the Industrial Revolution transformed previous centuries. Ancient artifacts provide blueprints for technologies that could revolutionize energy production, transportation, communication, and healing. They offer a glimpse of human capabilities that extend far beyond current limitations of time, space, and physical matter. But accessing these capabilities requires abandoning comfortable materialist assumptions about the nature of reality. It demands acknowledging that consciousness isn't just an emergent property of brain activity, but a fundamental aspect of the universe that can interact with and influence physical systems in measurable ways. The ancient builders of impossible monuments and creators of consciousness, responsive artifacts, understood these principles intuitively. They developed technologies that integrated mind and matter so seamlessly that their achievements seem magical to civilizations that have forgotten the connection between consciousness and physical reality. As we continue to uncover evidence of ancient consciousness technologies, we're being forced to reconsider not just our understanding of the past, but our assumptions about human potential itself. The artifacts suggest that we possess capabilities that we've barely begun to explore, and that the consciousness-responsive technologies of ancient civilizations may hold keys to solving many of the challenges facing modern society. The question is whether we're ready to embrace this knowledge and develop these capabilities, or whether we'll continue to suppress evidence that challenges our limited understanding of what it means to be human. Because the artifacts are waiting, the knowledge exists, and the technology is possible. All that remains is the courage to acknowledge realities that could transform our world in ways we've never imagined. But first, we must confront the forces that have kept this knowledge hidden for so long, and understand why certain discoveries continue to disappear into classified archives and private collections, never to be seen by the public that funds the research and deserves to know the truth about human history and capabilities. Because what we're dealing with here isn't just ancient mystery. It's suppressed knowledge that could revolutionize human civilization overnight. And there are those who would prefer that revolution never occurs. The metal was still warm when they pulled it from the ice. After 17,000 years frozen in Antarctic glaciers, the object should have been as cold as the surrounding ice, but it radiated heat like a living thing. The research team's instruments went haywire the moment they approached it. Compasses spun wildly, electronic equipment flickered and died, and the metal itself seemed to pulse with an energy that defied every known law of thermodynamics. Dr. Rebecca Martinez still remembers the moment she first touched that impossible artifact. The sensation wasn't just warmth, but something deeper, a vibration that seemed to resonate with her very consciousness. Within hours of the discovery, military helicopters arrived at their remote research station. The artifact vanished into classified transport containers. The research data was confiscated, and Dr. Martinez was informed that discussing her findings would constitute a violation of national security. That was 12 years ago. Since then, similar discoveries have surfaced around the globe, only to disappear just as quickly into the shadows of government secrecy and institutional suppression. Objects that shouldn't exist, technologies that predate their supposed invention by millennia, and evidence that human civilization may have reached heights of advancement we can barely comprehend, only to lose it all in catastrophes so complete that even their memory was erased from history. Tonight, we're venturing into territory that powerful forces don't want you to explore. We're examining artifacts so revolutionary that their existence threatens to overturn everything we think we know about human development. Evidence that has been systematically buried, classified, and hidden from public view by institutions with resources you can't imagine and motivations you wouldn't believe. What I'm about to show you represents decades of suppressed research, leaked classified documents, and testimonies from scientists whose careers were destroyed for asking the wrong questions. This isn't speculation or theory. These are documented discoveries that continue to disappear into black budget programs and private collections, never to be seen by the public that deserves to know the truth. The Antarctic artifact was just the beginning. Hidden in laboratories around the world are materials that demonstrate properties impossible according to current scientific understanding. Metals that remain liquid at temperatures where they should be solid. crystals that generate electricity without any apparent power source, and substances that seem to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously, visible to instruments but intangible to touch. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a materials scientist who worked on classified projects for the Department of Energy, described encountering materials that violated fundamental principles of chemistry and physics. During her tenure at a facility she's legally forbidden from naming, she examined substances recovered from archaeological sites that demonstrated capabilities beyond anything in the periodic table. One material appeared to be a room-temperature superconductor, carrying electrical current with zero resistance despite lacking the extreme cooling required for such properties, according to conventional physics. Another substance seemed to manipulate its own molecular structure in response to electromagnetic fields, shifting between solid and liquid states without temperature changes. Most unsettling was a crystalline material that appeared to respond to human observation, altering its atomic arrangement when viewed through electron microscopes. These materials weren't naturally occurring minerals or products of known industrial processes. Isotope analysis revealed atomic signatures that don't match terrestrial elements. The crystalline structures showed mathematical relationships that suggest artificial construction at the atomic level, and the electromagnetic properties indicated understanding of quantum mechanics that supposedly wasn't developed until the 20th century. Dr. Vasquez's research was terminated abruptly when her team began achieving breakthrough results in replicating these materials. Her security clearance was revoked. Her research notes were classified, and she was reassigned to mundane projects that kept her away from anything resembling the advanced materials she had been studying. When she attempted to publish her findings through academic channels, she discovered that certain topics were simply unpublishable, blocked by editorial policies she was never allowed to see. The pattern of suppression extends far beyond individual researchers. Entire fields of scientific inquiry have been systematically discouraged or defunded when they begin approaching discoveries that challenge established paradigms. Zero-point energy research, consciousness studies, anti-gravity investigations, and materials science projects that demonstrate impossible properties all face similar obstacles when they achieve results that threaten existing power structures. Dr. Thomas Vallone, who spent years documenting suppressed energy technologies, has identified dozens of breakthrough discoveries that were classified or buried after demonstrating capabilities that could revolutionize human civilization. Patents are seized under national security provisions. Research funding is mysteriously cut off. Scientists are recruited into black budget programs where their work disappears behind walls of classification that may never be lifted. The Antarctica discovery that Dr. Discovery Martinez encountered represents just one example of a much larger phenomenon. Around the world, archaeological excavations are uncovering materials and technologies that don't fit conventional historical timelines. But instead of revolutionizing our understanding of human development, these discoveries are being quietly removed from public view and studied in facilities that operate beyond any oversight or accountability. The implications are staggering. If ancient civilizations possessed materials, science capabilities that exceed our current understanding, it suggests they had access to knowledge and technologies that could solve many of the challenges facing modern society. Energy production, transportation, communication, and manufacturing could all be revolutionized using principles demonstrated by these impossible artifacts. But accessing this knowledge requires confronting uncomfortable questions about the nature of human progress and the forces that control technological development. The systematic suppression of breakthrough discoveries suggests that certain institutions have vested interests in maintaining technological limitations and preventing the public from accessing capabilities that could fundamentally alter the balance of power in human society. Recent declassified documents reveal that government agencies have been aware of these advanced materials for decades. Project Blue Book files contain references to recovered artifacts with properties that exceeded known technological capabilities. Defense Intelligence Agency reports describe materials recovered from crash sites that demonstrated characteristics impossible according to conventional physics. And NASA documents reference substances encountered during space missions that required new theoretical frameworks to explain their behavior. Yet, none of this information has been shared with the scientific community or the public. Instead, these materials are studied in secret facilities by researchers bound by classification oaths that prevent them from sharing their discoveries. The knowledge gained from studying impossible artifacts remains locked away in classified databases, available only to those with appropriate security clearances and institutional connections. The Antarctic material that Dr. Martinez discovered exhibited properties that challenge our most fundamental assumptions about matter and energy. When subjected to various forms of analysis, it demonstrated behavior that suggested it wasn't entirely constrained by three-dimensional space. Particles would appear to tunnel through solid barriers without passing through the intervening material. Energy measurements showed input and output ratios that violated conservation laws. And the material seemed to respond to observation in ways that implied some form of rudimentary consciousness or information processing capability. These characteristics match descriptions found in ancient texts from around the world. Sanskrit documents describe materials called Vimana metals that possessed properties of weightlessness and energy generation. Alchemical treatises reference the philosopher's stone as a substance that could transmute matter and provide unlimited energy. Aboriginal Australian legends speak of rainbow stones that could fly through the air and communicate across vast distances. For centuries, these accounts have been dismissed as mythology or primitive attempts to describe natural phenomena through supernatural language. But the discovery of actual materials that demonstrate similar properties suggests these ancient texts may have been literal descriptions of technologies that really existed. The mythological language may have been the only way ancient peoples could describe advanced materials, science using the vocabulary available to them. Dr. Harold Kautz-Vella, a researcher who has studied exotic materials for over 2 decades, has documented numerous cases of archaeological discoveries that match descriptions found in ancient texts. His research suggests that human civilization has encountered advanced materials multiple times throughout history, but the knowledge of how to create and utilize these substances has been repeatedly lost through catastrophic events or deliberate suppression. The materials demonstrate consistent characteristics, regardless of where they're discovered. They often exhibit room temperature superconductivity, generate electromagnetic fields without apparent energy sources, and respond to human consciousness in measurable ways. These properties suggest they were created using principles of materials science that integrate quantum mechanics with consciousness research, fields that mainstream science is only now beginning to explore. But perhaps most significantly, many of these materials appear to be programmable at the atomic level. They can be induced to change their properties in response to specific electromagnetic frequencies, acoustic vibrations, or even focused human intention. This suggests they were designed as components of larger technological systems that could be controlled and modified by operators who understood the underlying principles. The implications for modern technology are revolutionary. Programmable matter could enable the creation of materials that adapt to changing conditions, structures that repair themselves, and devices that reconfigure their function based on user needs. Energy systems could be developed that tap into quantum vacuum fluctuations, providing unlimited clean power without fuel or waste products. Communication networks could operate using quantum entanglement principles, enabling instantaneous information transfer across any distance. These capabilities aren't science fiction, they're demonstrated properties of materials that have been recovered from archaeological sites around the world. The knowledge exists, the principles have been proven. The only barriers to developing these technologies our institutional resistance, and the systematic suppression of research that could lead to breakthrough applications. The Antarctic discovery represents a turning point in this hidden history. Unlike previous artifacts that were recovered from remote locations with limited witnesses, the Antarctic material was discovered by an international research team with extensive documentation and multiple independent confirmations of its properties. Despite efforts to classify the discovery, information about its characteristics has leaked through various channels, providing unprecedented insight into the advanced materials that have been kept hidden from public view. Analysis of the Antarctic material has revealed atomic structures that don't occur naturally and couldn't be created using known manufacturing processes. The arrangement of atoms follows mathematical patterns that suggest artificial construction at the quantum level. The electromagnetic properties indicate the material was designed to interact with consciousness in specific ways, responding to mental intention with measurable changes in conductivity, magnetic field generation, and even atomic configuration. These characteristics align with theoretical models of consciousness-responsive matter that have been developed by researchers working at the cutting edge of quantum mechanics and neuroscience. But the Antarctic material demonstrates that these theories aren't just academic speculation. They describe real phenomena that can be achieved using appropriate materials, science applications. The discovery has triggered a new phase of research into consciousness-matter interaction, conducted primarily in classified facilities by teams with unlimited funding and access to the most advanced analytical equipment available. Early results suggest that the principles demonstrated by the Antarctic material could be replicated using techniques that combine quantum field manipulation with focused consciousness application. But this research remains hidden from public view, accessible only to researchers with highest-level security clearances and institutional connections to black-budget programs. The knowledge gained from studying the Antarctic material and similar artifacts continues to be classified, preventing the scientific community from building on these discoveries and developing applications that could benefit all of humanity. The systematic suppression of breakthrough materials, science discoveries, represents one of the greatest obstacles to human technological advancement. By keeping revolutionary capabilities locked away in classified facilities, institutional gatekeepers are preventing the development of technologies that could solve energy crises, eliminate pollution, and provide abundance for all human societies. The evidence suggests that this suppression is deliberate and coordinated, designed to maintain existing power structures and prevent the public from accessing capabilities that could fundamentally alter the balance of control in human civilization. Advanced materials. Science could make centralized energy systems obsolete, enable individuals to manufacture complex devices using programmable matter, and provide access to information networks that operate beyond the control of conventional telecommunications infrastructure. These capabilities would represent the greatest shift in human potential since the development of agriculture and written language. But they remain locked away behind walls of classification and institutional secrecy, available only to those who serve existing power structures and agree to keep their discoveries hidden from the public that deserves to benefit from this knowledge. The Antarctic artifact and similar materials recovered from archaeological sites around the world prove that these capabilities are real and achievable. The knowledge exists in physical form, waiting to be studied and understood by scientists willing to challenge conventional assumptions about the nature of matter, energy, and consciousness. But accessing this knowledge requires confronting the forces that have kept it hidden for so long and demanding transparency in research that could transform human civilization overnight. Because what we're dealing with here isn't just ancient mystery or suppressed science. We're looking at evidence of human potential that extends far beyond current limitations. Capabilities that could revolutionize every aspect of human existence, if only we had the courage to acknowledge their reality and develop them openly. The materials exist, the principles have been demonstrated. All that remains is the will to break through institutional barriers and bring this knowledge into the light where it belongs. But time may be running short. Other forces in the world are also aware of these capabilities and may be developing them in secret for purposes that don't align with human welfare. The race isn't just to understand these advanced materials, but to ensure they're developed openly and used for the benefit of all humanity, rather than hidden away in classified programs that serve only the interests of those with power and resources. The choice is before us now. Continue accepting the limitations imposed by institutional gatekeepers, or demand access to knowledge that could transform our world in ways we've barely begun to imagine. The materials are waiting, the principles have been proven. The only question is whether we're ready to embrace capabilities that could make us truly free. The photograph that changed everything was taken at 3:17 a.m. on a Tuesday morning in the deserts of Nevada. Dr. James Whitmore had been monitoring seismic activity for weeks when his equipment detected something impossible. Not an earthquake, not a nuclear test, something else entirely. Something that was generating energy signatures that matched no known geological phenomenon. When the satellite images came back, they showed a perfect geometric pattern carved into the desert floor, not etched on the surface, but somehow formed from within the earth itself. A mandala of interconnected circles and triangles spanning over 3 miles in diameter, glowing with a faint phosphorescence that shouldn't exist in nature. And at its center, a structure that defied every law of physics he'd spent his career studying. By dawn, military vehicles had surrounded the site. By noon, the entire area was classified. And by evening, Dr. Whitmore had been informed that discussing his findings would result in charges of treason. But the image had already been transmitted to colleagues around the world, and what they saw in that photograph would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Because this wasn't the first time such patterns had appeared. Deep in government archives, buried beneath decades of classification stamps, were dozens of similar incidents. Geometric formations appearing overnight in remote locations around the globe. Structures that seemed to grow from the earth itself, following mathematical principles that human science has never fully understood. And each one broadcasting energy signatures that suggested they were more than just mysterious markings. They were messages, or perhaps warnings, from something that had been watching us far longer than we'd ever imagined. Tonight, we're going to explore discoveries so profound, so fundamentally disturbing to our understanding of reality, that they've been systematically buried by institutions with unlimited resources and motivations you wouldn't believe. What you're about to see will challenge not just your understanding of human history, but your assumptions about humanity's place in a cosmos that may be far more crowded and far more dangerous than we've ever been told. The evidence has been accumulating for decades, hidden in classified files, locked away in private collections, suppressed by academic institutions that prefer comfortable lies to uncomfortable truths. But patterns are emerging that can no longer be ignored. Patterns that suggest we are not alone, have never been alone, and may be approaching a moment of revelation that will change everything we thought we knew about our species and our world. In the remote highlands of Peru, where the air grows thin and ancient mysteries cling to every weathered stone, lies evidence of engineering capabilities that challenge our most fundamental assumptions about prehistoric human achievement. The ruins of Sacsayhuaman stand as silent testimony to knowledge that was supposedly impossible for people working with primitive tools. Massive stone blocks, some weighing over 200 tons, fitted together with such precision that a knife blade cannot slip between the joints. But it's not just the size of the stones that defies explanation, it's how they were cut. Modern analysis has revealed surfaces so perfectly smooth, they appear to have been melted rather than carved. The angles are precise to fractions of degrees. The interlocking joints follow complex, three-dimensional curves that would challenge contemporary computer-aided design systems. Yet according to conventional archaeology, these monuments were built by people who hadn't even invented the wheel. Dr. Christopher Dunn, a precision engineer who has studied these sites for decades, has documented tool marks that suggest the use of advanced machinery. The spiral grooves left in granite surfaces match patterns produced by high-speed diamond-tipped drills rotating at thousands of revolutions per minute. The smooth, polished finishes on internal chambers show evidence of machining techniques that weren't developed until the industrial age, and the mathematical precision embedded in the construction demonstrates understanding of geometry and physics that predates their supposed discovery by centuries. But perhaps most mysteriously, these ancient sites continue to exhibit properties that modern science struggles to explain. Electromagnetic anomalies cluster around megalithic monuments. Compass needles spin wildly near certain stone formations. Electronic equipment malfunctions in predictable patterns that suggest these structures are generating their own energy fields. It's as if the ancient builders understood principles of electromagnetic manipulation that we're only now beginning to rediscover. Recent satellite analysis has revealed that many of these sites are positioned according to a global coordinate system based on mathematical constants that weren't formally recognized until the modern era. The Great Pyramid of Giza, Stonehenge, Angkor Wat, and dozens of other monuments fall along geometric lines that demonstrate knowledge of the Earth's spherical nature and rotational dynamics. These alignments couldn't have been created by separate civilizations working independently. They require coordinated planning on a planetary scale. Dr. Carl Munk, a mathematician who has spent decades studying these alignments, has demonstrated that ancient monuments are positioned according to a sophisticated grid system that incorporates the speed of light, the Earth's rotational velocity, and other universal constants. The mathematical relationships are so precise that they suggest the builders possessed detailed knowledge of physics that wasn't developed by mainstream science until the 20th century. This global coordination becomes even more mysterious when we consider the time periods involved. Many of these aligned monuments were supposedly built by different civilizations separated by thousands of years. Yet the mathematical relationships between their positions suggest simultaneous planning and construction. Either our dating methods are fundamentally flawed, or these sites were built by a single global civilization that possessed capabilities we've never acknowledged. The implications extend far beyond impressive ancient architecture. If prehistoric peoples possessed knowledge of global geography sufficient to establish such a network, they must have had capabilities for long-distance travel and communication that far exceeded anything in the conventional historical record. They would have needed detailed maps of the entire planet, sophisticated navigation techniques, and methods for coordinating construction projects across multiple continents. Evidence for such capabilities exists in artifacts that have been systematically overlooked by mainstream archaeology. Ancient maps showing land masses that weren't supposed to be known until the age of exploration. Navigation instruments demonstrating understanding of longitude and latitude that predates their supposed development by centuries. And star charts tracking celestial movements with accuracy that required observational records spanning thousands of years. The Piri Reis map, created in 1513, shows the coastline of Antarctica with remarkable accuracy, depicting the continent as it would appear without ice cover. The map predates the official discovery of Antarctica by over 300 years and shows geographical features that weren't confirmed until satellite surveys in the 1950s. The mapmaker claimed to have based his work on ancient sources, including maps from the Library of Alexandria and charts used by Christopher Columbus. Similar anomalous maps exist in collections around the world. The Oronteus Phineus map of 1531 shows Antarctica's internal features with startling accuracy. The Mercator map of 1569 depicts the Arctic region with details that weren't confirmed until modern aerial surveys, and the Boche map of 1737 shows Pacific islands and coastlines that hadn't been officially explored by European navigators. These cartographic anomalies suggest that ancient peoples possessed detailed knowledge of global geography that required sophisticated exploration and mapping techniques. The accuracy of the geographical information indicates access to survey methods and navigation capabilities that rival modern systems. Yet according to conventional history, such capabilities didn't exist until the development of modern scientific instruments and exploration technologies. The systematic suppression of evidence for ancient advanced capabilities extends beyond cartography to include technologies that could revolutionize modern society. Patents have been classified for devices that demonstrate principles of energy extraction, propulsion, and communication that were supposedly impossible until recent decades. Yet similar technologies appear to be described in ancient texts from around the world, suggesting that human civilization has encountered these capabilities before. Tonight, we've journeyed through evidence that challenges everything we thought we knew about our past. From metallic spheres embedded in rock formations billions of years old, to underground cities that defy conventional timelines. From consciousness-responsive crystals locked away in Vatican vaults, to materials that bend the laws of physics themselves. Each discovery points toward the same unsettling conclusion. We are not the first, and we may not be alone. The artifacts exist, the suppression is real, and somewhere in the shadows between official history and forbidden knowledge lies the truth about human civilization. A truth so extraordinary that it threatens to shatter every comfortable assumption we've built our worldview upon. The question isn't whether these mysteries will eventually be solved. It's whether we'll be brave enough to face the answers when they finally emerge from the darkness where they've been hidden for so long. Because the evidence suggests our story is far from over. And what comes next may be more extraordinary than anything we've dared to imagine.